Well, this is a meme now. On dating apps, young men are telling women that they will be eating that blank like Haitian migrants, as others are spreading the message through song and dance on social media apps like this.
They're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats. Eat the cat, eat the cat. They're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats. Eat the cat, eat the cat.
This, as it's fair to say, that our society is etching ever so closer, if not already there, to full-on idiocracy. But don't worry, guys. Everything's going to be fine, as the slate is going to be cleared with the potential of World War III and apocalyptic nuclear escalations that are currently unfolding right now in Ukraine, as the United States is hinting that they soon will be lifting restrictions on Ukraine from using long-range advanced missile systems deep inside of Russia. So yeah, that's going on.
And this is what's happening.
But yeah, at least the music and the memes are pretty good. They're not bad. That's, of course, the situation domestically here inside of the United States is pretty crazy, pretty awful, pretty off the wall, as we just came off one of the biggest presidential debates in American history, where we're finding out there was a lot of clear bias here, as we're finding out today that Kamala Harris's friends were the ones who were overseeing the entire operation. That didn't surprise a lot of people, especially with the behavior of ABC news anchors that are now being heavily criticized even by other corporate media outlets like the Daily Mail. As of course, there was a lot of fact-checking, there was a lot of interruptions. There was about 11 directly against Donald Trump and 0 for Kamala Harris. This, as Kamala Harris clearly spread a lot of lies and mistruths. Now, Donald Trump said some things that were incorrect as well. But it's also important to note here that he was fact-checked on some things that actually were correct, that he did say right, as ABC News obfuscated many key points and key details in a lot of the framing of the questions that they brought up that were absolutely extremely partisan. One of the things that they fact-checked Donald Trump on that they were absolutely wrong about, and there was a bunch, was the crime statistics going up, as of course they are being cooked, they are being manipulated, as a lot of violent crimes are now being downgraded to misdemeanors, as the FBI's Universal Crime Data System now has an optional system when it comes to reporting data, as many Americans, specifically in major key areas all around the United States, are reporting a major uptick in crime that is usually left unpunished. This, as there was also a lot of jabs thrown at Joe Biden, the current president of the United States, during the presidential debates, that recently also decided to don Donald Trump hat, which his team is saying was a gesture of unity, but could be a signal towards Joe Biden not really being happy that Kamala Harris threw him under the bus many times during the presidential debates. And more specifically, didn't just defend him, but of course, even directly criticized and attacked some of the policies that she was fomenting. As of course, Biden now is someone that the DNC is doing their best in order to try to get rid of from the national scene. It does seem like he's being slighted. He is being absolutely ridiculed, viciously attacked. And let's be honest here, this could also be a signal of old age, but it could also be a signal of Biden being angry that he was pushed out of this larger political race. This, as there's some controversy surrounding Kamala Harris's earrings, as some people are claiming that she had these Bluetooth-style jewelry pieces inside of her ears that were giving her talking points about what she should be saying and not saying during the presidential debate. Now, we haven't been able to independently confirm if these were Bluetooth or not, as I think one of the biggest deciding factors of this presidential debate was the conversation specifically around foreign policy, to which now the corporate media is responding to by specifically going as far as to say that, quote, Donald Trump is a de facto, quote, Russian asset, something that, of course, we have been hearing since 2016. This, of course, amplified after the two presidential candidates this year discussed their larger approach towards foreign policy, specifically describing their different types of approaches for Ukraine. As very interestingly, they pretty much agreed on the situation in the Middle East, something that also is a very inconvenient issue for the Democrats and its young voter base that is disenfranchised by the current Democratic foreign policy inside of the Middle East. As yesterday was a major anniversary for America, paying tribute to all the lives lost 23 years ago and the many lives that were lost right after it, as the United States government spent trillions of dollars fighting a global war on terror that 20 years later on has only increased the levels of influence, money, support, and capabilities of these larger terrorist organizations that we given up our personal freedoms in order to stop, that have only grown and fostered and have also been given the latest kind of greatest American technology, along with weaponry that are now in their hands, as there are now intel reports, even from the United States, specifically referencing advanced high-tech American military gear that could shoot down airplanes, go after specific targets miles and miles away, that have been currently getting lost inside of Ukraine, as a former CBS report even reported how a lot of the weapons, a lot of our tax dollars that are spent on these weapons are in many instances not even making their way down to the frontline troops inside of that particular country. This, as Ukraine is, of course, having a significant manpower shortage inside of their country, as they are fighting a country that is vastly more populated than they are, while also having a production capability with natural resources that they are way more abundant in. A conflict where clearly they are the underdog and are relying on American and other European nations, predominantly, overwhelmingly American support, to continue this larger conflict that has been wrecking and destroying the lives of an entire generation of young Ukrainian men. Men that will no longer be here on this earth, as the leader of that country has literally made deals with BlackRock, Goldman Sachs in order to rebuild that country, but also implement new immigration policies that, of course, would allow people from the third world to come into Ukraine and to replace the young men that are being sacrificed right now. This, as the numbers of lives lost are extremely significant here on both sides, as the true numbers are unknown. But one thing that is very clear here are that these numbers are vastly bigger than a lot of people expect them to be, as we saw a different approach from Donald Trump and Kamala Harris when it comes to this particular conflict, as Kamala Harris, the current vice president of the United States, specifically spoke about staying the course, not giving up on this larger military-industrial complex endeavor that largely within the last few months has been a stalemate, where young Slavic men are just ruthlessly being eviscerated and taking each other's lives with advanced robotics that are being shipped from all over the world. And it's not only just money and lives being wasted away here, but the Ukrainian country that is being obliterated and destroyed from within. This, as the United says, don't worry, we'll pledge another $717 million in new economic aid to Ukraine. Money that, of course, is printed, borrowed, and deflated with the more that it is spent. As an estimate, $325 million will be spent in energy support to help repair and restore power facilities inside of Ukraine that the Russians have been significantly striking. There's going to be $290 million in humanitarian aid, which is desperately needed for the people there. As in my opinion, continuing this lunacy, continuing the life loss here is absolutely ridiculous. And if you care about Slavic men, if you care about people, you want to, of course, make sure that wars end. If you want to sacrifice people, sacrifice countries, sacrifice infrastructure, you put them to war and you continue to have them fight this war. That is just as clean, as simple as I personally see it, and that's exactly how Donald Trump sees it as well. As he was asked specifically, does he want Ukraine to win? As ABC moderators didn't even define what winning actually means. And if you're able to define Ukraine winning by being able to save lives, save at least some of their territory, stop this constant onslaught and this current state of war, I would say, yeah, That's actually winning. If you're able to get rid of the national emergency that's happening in Ukraine right now, if you're able to give them back their elections, if you're able to give them back their normal way of life, that to me is winning. But that's not, of course, how the corporate media that usually is bought up by the military-industrial complex sees it. As Donald Trump was asked once again, do you really want Ukraine to win? As again, the terms were not clearly defined here, but we knew exactly what ABC News was alluding to. As Kamala Harris has the more corporate military-industrial complex approved talking point that also significantly fills their coffers and is able to, of course, transfer more money away from the American taxpayer into this larger endeavor, this larger war, this larger fight that, in my opinion, needs to be ended through a peace deal. This, as NBC News has this article saying, quote, Trump won't say if he wants Ukraine to win the war. Again, what does winning mean? We don't even know what that means. This is a very sophisticated, complicated situation. This, as the Secretary of State literally visited Kiev this Wednesday, as his rhetoric there could severely escalate the situation in very dangerous ways. We'll get into his comments in a little bit, but this was the exchange on ABC News that I thought was very important for the American people to understand the key difference when it comes to a foreign policy approach to this larger endeavor.
But he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow much happier than he is right now. But eventually, you know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening, but he does have that. Something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did.
And one of the things that the United States kind of declared and alluded to was the future of Ukraine inside of NATO. This is what a lot of people believe sparked up this conflict and then started the larger kind of escalations that led to Russia starting officially this war and invading Ukraine. As Politico is now writing that Trump just showed how he'd approached the war in Ukraine, saying that he gave no ground in his refusal to explicitly cheer for Ukraine's success. And of course, we want Ukraine's success. As a Polish man, as a country that is also Slavic, that is very close, that has been doing a lot for the country of Ukraine, as of course Poland has taken in more Ukrainian refugees than any other country in the European Union right now. Simply put it, we don't want the continuation of our Slavic people to continue. We don't want them to die. We don't want them to lose their lives. We don't want them to be fighting a battle for what larger kind of geopolitical purposes and agenda here. What's really going on here is the question that I think a lot of people should be asking themselves here. As Kamala Harris is now suggesting Russia could potentially target Poland if Ukraine loses the war. And again, what does loses the war mean? As Russia has offered a peace deal recently that was just denied. A peace deal that, of course, makes Ukraine also succeed a lot of territory in their region, something that NATO and Ukraine sees as a non-starter here. But honestly speaking here, the peace proposal that was officially kind of proposed by Elon Musk is a rational one that he proposed a couple months ago that if Ukraine would have taken, that I think would have been way better off. Now, when it comes to these kind of larger negotiations, when it comes to these larger kind of peace deals, we have to understand here that there needs to be a give and take, not just by the Ukrainians, but also the Russians. The Russians have their list of demands. I think Ukraine needs to come with their list, and let's meet in the middle, but at least offer up a counter proposal. At least have the negotiations here. As of course, within human history, there's always individuals that are able to, of course, negotiate and work out peace deals that, again, both sides won't be happy with, but at least the fighting stops. And to me, this war is being fought for political purposes rather than actual strategic logistical ones. As, of course, CNBC News today is also reporting that Russia just turned the table on Ukraine, launching a counter-offensive inside of its country, Kursk, where they had had major successes in and were able to repel Ukrainian forces that made a very bold incursion into their territory last month. This as the Russians are now reporting that they have taken back about 10 settlements in the Kursk region near the border of Ukraine. As today, The Guardian is also reporting that the West's missile go-ahead to Ukraine, quote, would hold no shortage of risk. And absolutely, as there is some serious conversations right now about the United States allowing Ukraine to use long-range advanced missile systems deep into Russian territory to target their military and energy infrastructure. This, as of course we need to understand, would be a dramatic impact and escalation on this entire conflict. And as even The Guardian puts it, if not carefully calibrated, could dramatically impact this conflict. As the U.S. Secretary of State is hinting that the United States will lift these restrictions, as The Guardian is also reporting that the decision has already been made in private and represents something that, of course, Russia will be escalating to in response. As Antony Blinken now has given his strongest hint yet that the White House is about to lift this restriction, which not only will be a game changer here, but also something to look at when it comes to the larger potential escalation of this into a largely global conflict. This is where we are at right now. As of course, imagine if the shoe was on the other foot. Imagine if the United States had a conflict with Mexico. The United States invaded Mexico, and countries like China and Russia would be sending long-range ballistic advanced missile systems to Mexico so they could, of course, target places like New York City and Washington, D.C. As it's also important to note here that one of the largest attacks on Moscow actually happened right before the presidential debate. This is last month, we saw the NATO chief back Ukraine's invasion of Russian territory, something that the Russians have said was a red line, and it does look like there are deliberate attempts in order to trigger Russia's red line here that has been now kind of routinely violated here. As another major statement by Antony Blinken this Wednesday stated that Ukraine's path to NATO is irreversible. As of course, these were the topics of discussions that led to the larger escalations that led to, of course, Russia invading it. As the United States is spending a lot of its money and resources here, it's important to note that China, one of its chief economic rivals on the world stage, is, of course, promoting trade, infrastructure, and their new form of colonization, which they're implementing inside of Africa, as they just had a major Chinese-African summit inside of China, where they were able to fly in all of the leaders of African countries and governments, creating a Chinese-African cooperation force, as the Chinese Belt and Road kind of initiative is showing some significant parallels to global influence to, of course, American hegemony. This says China also has been a major supporter of Russia, as NATO is even warning China to stop supporting Russia in its war efforts against Ukraine. India also is becoming a major trade partner to Russia. Russia also just expanded their trade routes to their country. Iran, of course, has been providing a lot of drones to Russia that have been playing a major impact throughout this entire conflict, as Al Jazeera is reporting that Russia's and NATO's red lines in Ukraine are shifting, highlighting a very dangerous situation, as the Ukrainians are demanding more Western weapons to attack Russian territory. This, as we have to understand here, we're playing with fire, something that Al Jazeera even writes could potentially trigger an outright war between NATO and Russia, between the United States and Russia. Nuclear powers that could see each other fight each other, where the situation could quickly expand, quickly get out of control, and reach a level of very dangerous proportions, as even CNN is reporting today that, quote, preparing for the apocalypse, here is why collaboration is essential. It is, as some people are prophesizing that World War III is around the corner, and that to me is just dumb, not smart. I think we could be spending our time and resources and money in more fruitful kind of endeavors. And to me, sending young people off to die for fight for wars for even unknown, larger kind of geopolitical goals and aspirations that haven't been clearly defined to the American people, as the only thing Kamala Harris had to say about the continuation of this war is that, quote, we don't give up. And give up on what? What are you talking about? What are the clear goals and objectives here? What do you want to accomplish? Why are we doing this? Why are we forcing Ukraine to do this? As of course, there are a lot of Ukrainians that don't like this war, that want this war to end. Their voices matter more than ever, in my opinion, as at least let's get some negotiations started here. And if you agree with that, share this video with your friends and family members. Again, we are a fully independent media organization. We don't work with any kind of big partnerships or organizations. You finance us, you support us directly through, of course, LukeUnfiltered.com, where we are able to provide you unfiltered access and information with special videos just for members. As of course, you also get 3 master classes about traveling the world, about being a journalist, about surviving the apocalypse. We literally have the apocalypse survival training class. Lots of important videos that you could download with one click of a button, especially when it comes to land navigation, filtering your own water, starting your own fires, hunting your own food, you name it. We teach people exactly how to do that. It's free for members of LukeUnfiltered.com, and you could sign up for $8, you could sign up for $15, you could sign up for $99, whatever your budget affords you during these kind of build back better difficulties that all of us are dealing with right now. There's also going to be a very special event in Miami that we are going to be giving out free tickets to. Tickets are about $100, but you could go for free for a certain amount of We Are Change members. So stay tuned for that contest giveaway, only exclusively just for members of LukeUnfiltered.com. Again, World War III, stupid idea, something that I think we should be doing everything in our power in order to avoid here. Let's at least have some clear conversations and discourse about what's really going on here. And I don't think we're getting that from individuals that are invested in just continuing and prolonging this larger war. That's my perspective. That's my 2 cents. If you think I'm wrong in any way, shape, or form, let me know why down in the comment section below. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys signing up to LukeUnfiltered.com, and this is why I love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on LukeUnfiltered.com.